My name is Alicia Hoke, and I'm a project manager with Penn State Hershey Pro Wellness Center. I will be presenting most of today's webinar, and then I'll be turning it over to a special guest closer to the end of this webinar. If at any time you have questions during the webinar, you can go ahead and put them in the chat box, but you can also use the email address that's on your screen, and that's ahoke@phs.psu.edu. So before we launch into today's presentation, I'd like to mention that the funding for this webinar is provided as part of the mini grants program delivered by Penn State Hershey Pro Wellness Center. We'd like to thank the Pennsylvania Department of Health for providing funding through the Preventive Health and Health Services Block Grant from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. A few housekeeping points for this webinar. All participant microphones have been muted to ensure that the information shared by the presenters can be heard clearly. As I mentioned, if you have questions or you're having difficulty viewing the slides or any technical problems, feel free to put a comment in the chat box. It's being monitored and hopefully your questions and concerns can be addressed through there. We also will be addressing questions related to the material later in this presentation. This webinar is being recorded, and a link to the recording and handouts that you'll see during this presentation will be sent out following the webinar. So the agenda for today's webinar, as you have been able to see now for a few moments, is that we're going to cover very quickly now the webinar objectives, who the Penn State Hershey Pro Wellness Center is. I'll provide a brief overview of comprehensive school physical activity programs, and then I'll go into more detail into three components of comprehensive school physical activity programs. So the objectives of today's webinar and the hopes are that when we finish this webinar that all attendees will be able to identify ways to improve comprehensive school physical activity programs in your school. We'd like for you to be able to recall resources that will help you plan a Bike to School Day event, and then to discuss best practices for implementing a bike share program. I'll briefly go over who Penn State Hershey Pro Wellness Center is, and we are a center committed to educating and inspiring youth and their families to eat well, engage in regular physical activity, and become champions for bringing healthy choices to life. Our goal is to reduce the incidence rate of childhood obesity, and we will do that through programming, partnerships, and proven interventions. We work with schools and community-based organizations and other like-minded organizations. You're encouraged to visit our website, pennstatehershey.org/prowellness. There you'll find lots of resources, which I'll note again several times throughout this presentation. So because you're joining us today, you probably already know many of the reasons why physical activity is important. And maybe you're joining to look for ways to increase physical activity in your own school or community setting. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, among many other sources, indicate that physical activity reduces risk of chronic disease and supports growth, including bone and muscle development. It's also a critical component for preventing and treating obesity. But because many of you are educators, and while the physical health of your students is important to you, academic success is also a very large priority. So there's a lot of literature out there that reports different effects on school-based physical activity on academic performance. But you should know that a large body of evidence supports the idea that physical activity plays a positive role in academic achievement. The idea that healthier students are better learners is supported by several pieces of literature, including some released by the Campaign for Education Equity and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. These briefs describe relationships between physical activity and cognition, including auditory, visual memory, and response speed, all things very important in the learning process. There's literature that describes the benefit of physical activity on attention span and classroom behavior, also key components in learning and learning environments. And one thing that's really important to take away is that although there have been many studies done about the effect on school-based physical activity and the link to academic achievement, a very minuscule amount of these studies have shown anything other than positive impact or neutral impact, meaning that increasing physical activity in the classrooms and in the schools does not have a negative impact on students and their academic achievement. So, with all the reasons why physical activity is important, many children are still not achieving the recommended 60 minutes per day of physical activity. And one mechanism to increase daily physical activity is for schools to implement comprehensive school physical activity programs. According to the National Association for Sport and Physical Education, a CSPAP is a multi-component approach by which school districts and schools use all opportunities for students to be physically active. They meet nationally recommended 60 minutes of physical activity each day and to develop the knowledge, skills, and confidence to be physically active for a lifetime. CSPAPs are made of 5 components. They're made of high-quality physical education, and that means that all students would take the required PE for 150 minutes per week in elementary settings and 225 minutes per week in middle or high school settings. Physical education should have a written sequential curriculum and include education and assessment of motor skills. Instructors should ensure that students are active at least 50% of class time and that all students are included. And student progress should be assessed, and physical education curriculum should be periodically evaluated as science changes. It's also comprised of physical activity before and after school. Physical activity before and after school provides opportunities to reach the recommended 60 minutes of daily physical activity. And it can replace sedentary times like waiting for the school day to begin or waiting for transportation. Before and after school clubs also provide safe and supervised opportunities for physical activity, and also mobile transportation like walking school buses provide opportunities for social integration along with physical activity. The next is physical activity during school. So physical activity during school includes recess and physical activity breaks. These opportunities should supplement formal PE time, not serve as a replacement. Staff involvement is that staff members will serve as role models for students and are encouraged to participate in employee wellness initiatives in addition to promoting physical activity to their students and in their classrooms. And then last but not least, family and community involvement. So community connections create opportunities to share resources and offer physical activity opportunities to families and community members, in addition to students and what they're getting in school. Involving families allows for the in-school components of CSPAP to be reinforced in home and community settings, further instilling that idea of lifelong physical activity. And with warmer weather on the horizon, it's time to start thinking about the spring, fall, and moving your CSPAP outside. Today we'll specifically talk about enhancing the outdoor physical activity components in 3 areas of CSPAP. They include physical activity before and after school, physical activity during school, and family and community involvement. If CSPAP is a new topic to you, or if you would like to learn about planning a CSPAP in your school, we encourage you to visit our website. There you'll find supplemental information about CSPAPs, and you can view the recording of the initial CSPAP webinar that we held on November 21st in 2013. This recorded webinar goes into more detail about each of the 5 CSPAP components. Okay, so now we've reached time for our second poll. And if you could take a moment to let me know what what title best describes the role in your school. Okay. Okay, so here's the results from our second poll. As you can see, we've, again, just similar to the first poll, we've got a wide variety of interests and purpose for being on the call today, which is great. I think everybody will get something out of today's call, and hopefully you can take that back to your school and into your own CSPAP. So as we're talking through the three components of CSPAP today, I'd like for you to think about how you in your individual role can expand that role and that purpose into your school, and what other hats you might be able to wear to enhance CSPAP in your school or in your community-based organization. Okay, so the first component of CSPAP that we'll talk about today is promoting and offering physical activity opportunities before and after school. These opportunities are often sponsored by schools or local community organizations. Two common strategies for increasing physical activity before and after school include active transportation, which includes walking and biking, to and from school, and offering physical activity clubs. Depending on local geography, one of the easiest ways to increase physical activity is walking to and from school. Students learn responsibility, enjoy the social time, and also add minutes to the 60 minutes of recommended daily physical activity. For schools who have a walkable community, mobile transportation and active transportation can often be increased by promotion and showing the community that your school supports walking to and from school. Now, there are certainly circumstances that may make it difficult to use active transportation. These include crime and distance, physical location of where a student lives to their proximity to the school. And for schools who have a less walkable community, opportunities like walking school buses and drop and walk locations are good strategies to use. These options offer adult supervision and support that idea of safety in numbers. The National Center for Safe Routes to School, the website is shown here. It's www.saferoutesinfo.org, provides resources for walking and biking efforts in your school and community, including event planning guides, curriculum, and language for policy implementation. A great way to kick off your walking and biking efforts is to participate in the National Bike to School Day on May 7th, 2014. You'll find many great planning resources at walkbiketoschool.org, including a very neat Map a Route tool that can be used to help plan the safest routes to your school. In addition, Pennsylvania schools and community groups are eligible to apply for infrastructure and non-infrastructure funding through the Pennsylvania Transportation Alternatives Program. This program combines previously separate programs, including Safe Routes to School and transportation enhancement programs. More information about this is available on the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation's website. And keep in mind that the closing date on this application is approaching near the beginning of April, but it should be also available for next year should you not be able to apply this year. Physical activity clubs are another option for before and after school time. You can use the time in the morning between bus drop-off and when student can actually report to their classroom to log laps on an outdoor track or in the gymnasium. Many students or many schools sort of corral children into the gymnasium or to the cafeteria before they're allowed to actually go to their classrooms, and this provides ample time to get a little bit of physical activity. Schools can also offer intramural programs that change quarterly, so the possibilities for these types of clubs are endless, and we found that student and family input is really valuable when determining the type of program you would like to implement. You can have students and parents complete surveys on the types of activities they'd like to participate in. If your school offers before or after school study sessions or tutoring, incorporate physical activity breaks. We'll talk a little more about physical activity breaks in the coming section of this presentation. One thing to keep in mind is that all physical activity opportunities should try to reach the greatest number of students possible. And that's why alternating or rotating through several activities on a monthly or quarterly basis can be very effective for engaging all types of students. The next CSPAP component is physical activity during school, and this includes all opportunities to be physically active outside of physical education. Because many schools find it difficult to schedule the recommended amount and frequency of PE, in-school physical activity can be a great way to supplement PE classes and assist students in reaching that goal of 60 minutes of daily physical activity. We all know what it feels like to be working diligently on a task for a length of time, and then suddenly your mind begins to wander, you start to fidget in your seat, and you find that you're no longer fully paying attention to the task in front of you. And just as it happens to adults, it certainly happens to kids. But one solution to this, especially in a classroom setting, are activity breaks. These are also sometimes referred to as brain breaks, and they provide an opportunity, typically just a few minutes in length, 3 to 5 minutes, to break away from the topic at hand, whether it's studying or actual active teaching, to get students' blood pumping and teachers' blood pumping. Simple things like jumping jacks and running in place can allow students and teachers to expend some energy and then return back to the work that they were doing with a clear mind and greater focus. Every subject offers opportunity to incorporate a few minutes of physical activity, and these short bursts add up to help kids reach that recommended 60 minutes. You'll see that solutions to math problems can become number of arm circles, or counting syllables and words can become sets of high knees. And so these very simple sort of standing in place physical activity opportunities pair very well with all sorts of curriculum. Another way to get the recommended 60 minutes of physical activity is to help students make the most out of recess. So recess for many students is one of the most coveted times of the day, but not all schools offer regular recess, and even fewer make full use of this time. Recess should be an active time for all students, and middle and high school students, although you don't typically think of them as having recess, they can be provided a type of recess like open gym opportunities during study halls and lunch periods. For schools with play yards full of equipment, something like this, there are inherent opportunities for kids to be active. Other schools may have simple blacktop areas or grassy areas, but each of the opportunities, or excuse me, each of the settings, so something like this instead, could be used to ensure that students are getting physical activity time. So you could paint your blacktop, and this is a very extreme example of painted blacktop, but even providing painted areas like Foursquare or Hopscotch provide opportunity for physical activity and promote the use of physical activity. Areas with no marking, so even if this space that I'm showing here was just one plain blacktopped area or a plain grassy area, it can still be used to create effective physical activity space in the way of structured recess. One school we worked with very closely used an area similar to this, just with no markings, and divided that blacktop into sections with different activities led by school personnel and volunteers. Segments included dancing, kickball, and various recess games. And then each day of the cycle, students would rotate through the pre-assigned sections and, in groups, and then the groups would be changed so that they would get to do activities with different sets of people and get to constantly do something different as opposed to just standing around during the outdoor recess period. But when weather requires that you have an indoor recess time, you can turn to websites like adventuretofitness.com for videos and activities to keep kids moving during indoor recess time. Websites such as these show activities or educational activities that incorporate physical activity breaks and are a great use of indoor recess time. And if possible, recess should be offered before lunch. There are several articles and several pieces of literature that support the idea that recess before lunch contributes to better nutrition. So students eat more of their lunch, including fruits, vegetables, and drink their milk because they're not racing off to the playground. And in that case, it creates less cafeteria waste because students are actually using the full lunch time to eat as opposed to part of it to eat and then the rest of it to get outside. It also results in fewer visits to the nurse for headaches or stomach aches because of eating and then running outside for vigorous play. And while it's important to incorporate physical activity into everyday activities like physical activity breaks and recess, special whole school events are a great way to increase and maintain excitement around physical activity. Your school may want to consider hosting a field day. Several schools that I've worked with have done things like this where they create teams made of different grade levels and maybe use the fifth grade representative as the team captain for a team that incorporates all grade levels in the school. And they are organized into teams and play games of varying levels and competition. And of course, there's great team building skills in there too. Or you may want to participate in Move It Outside Day. And Move It Outside Day is a day where schools and youth and community groups throughout the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania hold outdoor activities to encourage youth to increase activity levels and reconnect with nature. And this year, Move It Outside Day will be held on April 24th. This event is a Kohl's Healthy Champion signature event developed by Penn State Hershey Pro Wellness Center. If you visit our website, you'll find great resources for planning your Move It Outside Day event, including tips for organizing your team, example games, and events happening in Pennsylvania state parks around you. Move It Outside Day is one of 4 signature events made possible through our Healthy Champions program. Walk to School or Walk at School Day is held in October. Apple Crunch Day is held in October. Go for the Greens was just held a few weeks ago in March, and Move It Outside is in April, and of course, as I said, it's coming up here on April 24th. So our Healthy Champions program is available for schools in Pennsylvania and includes resources like outdoor recreation lesson plans and customized school champion reports. You can register your school as a Healthy Champion by visiting kohlshealthychampions.org. Annual registration by schools is required to receive the welcome kit each year, which includes posters for all of the 4 signature events and specific resources for the events in a specialized area of our website. Registration for the 14-15 school year is going to be opening in the next couple of weeks, so I encourage you to keep watch on our website and sign up for our newsletter to hear when that registration will open up. And I know that we have a few Healthy Champion schools on the call today, so I'm curious for our Healthy Champion schools and for people who have not yet registered as Healthy Champions, have you participated in any of our signature events? All right, this looks great. I can see quite a few of you have participated in our signature events. I'll give it just a moment and then I'll provide the results to this poll. Okay, so here we've had nearly equal amounts in all of the signature events, but it looks like Go for the Greens Day, which we just held, like I said, a few weeks ago, got a lot of participation, and I'm happy to hear that. Okay, so our third section of the CSPAP that we are going to talk about today is family and community engagement. And engaging families and the overall community is essential for sustaining physical activity opportunities and creating that idea of lifelong physical activity. Opportunities for physical activity can be offered within schools and in the larger community. And when these offerings occur outside of school hours, it allows for participation of families as well as other community members. The school and home and community connection supports the idea that physical activity is fun and good for you. And as students and children who are growing and learning, it's a great way to instill the idea that physical activity is something you should do throughout your life. So in this final section, we will talk about the importance of partnership with local agencies and ideas for fundraisers that include physical activity. Close to the end of this section, I will introduce our guest speaker to talk about best practices for bike share programs. Making connections with community partners results in the sharing of many resources, and that can include personnel, physical people to manage events and programs, knowledge and expertise, and sometimes it even can be shared costs for a project or a program. Many school budgets are very tight, and we know that, but sometimes community partners can, or even business partners can provide subsidies or supplement the cost of several activities. Community and school partnerships can result in many activities and events. Things such as bike rodeos, walking school buses, and other safe routes to school initiatives are great ways to form partnerships. Local law enforcement are always looking for ways to be incorporated into educational opportunities for students and show that they are people who students can trust and that if they see them that they're safety figures. So these local law enforcement personnel are great partners for walking and biking events. They can partner with a walking school bus on Walk to School Day or provide knowledge and resources during school assemblies about safety. Resources like the pedestrian safety videos sponsored by the Pennsylvania Department of Health are also available. The Just Drive PA logo that you see on the screen, if you click this link or if you search for Just Drive PA, you'll find that there are several videos that have been created to teach the importance of pedestrian safety and bike helmet proper fitting, and several videos like that. And moving away from maybe a walking or biking thought, if you're not a walkable community, things like community and school gardens are great ways to partner schools and community members to increase education and physical activity through gardening. We've worked with several schools who have had community gardens connect with schools and students, everything from providing bus tokens for the schools to be able to get to the community gardens after schools, or community garden representatives holding educational events at the garden, teaching students how to to plant and to prepare the soil and then to reap the benefits of the planting. And it has a very well-rounded educational effect in addition to being a great source of physical activity. School gardens can also provide opportunities for physical activity throughout the summer, and the produce doesn't stop growing when the school year stops, so they're great opportunities to engage students all summer long. And then students have a lot of fun selling the produce at farmers markets or even at small stands set up right at the school to make the profit needed to continue the community garden or school garden for the subsequent years. And this is actually a great segue into my next topic, which is fundraising and fundraising the active way. So many schools use fundraisers to provide opportunities for class trips and activities, band and sports teams and several things like that. But many schools are using fundraisers like food, pizzas, candy, unhealthy things that in several cases people buy to support students but may not actually want or need. So consider fundraising the active way and make community partnerships that will allow you to hold fundraisers like family fun runs or walks, hold car washes, work with your local golf courses to hold golf tournaments, or even walk, bike, dance, or bowl-a-thons. Great ways to earn some money for an organization or for a specific activity while creating a physical activity presence and then not loading up the cupboards with chocolates and candles and several things that are not quite as useful as physical activity. Okay. Well, before I launch into introduce Anthony Johnson, our Deputy Director for the Partnership Transportation Management Association of Montgomery County, I'd like to thank you all for listening to the parts of today's webinar that I presented, the 3 sections of CSPAP, and remind you that after this webinar today, you'll be able to find the recording, including my section and Anthony's, on our website, and you will receive an email with that information. So take a quick stretch break, move your arms and legs. After all, this webinar is about physical activity. And now I am pleased to welcome Anthony Johnson to our presentation today to talk to you about the successful bike share program that he and his colleagues implemented in Montgomery County. And just to make sure everybody knows where we're talking about when we say Montgomery County, you will find this county right outside of Philadelphia. It's the red one in the state of Pennsylvania that I'm showing on your screen right now. Okay, and with that,
thank you, Alicia, and good morning to everyone who's on the call today. As Alicia said, I'm Anthony Johnson, and I'm with the Partnership Transportation Management Association, and we're a nonprofit that works in suburban Philadelphia to help address transportation issues. So whether it's congested roadways or helping people figure out how to use public transit more effectively, that's what we do on a daily basis. So I was more than happy when Alicia invited us to come on to speak about a free bike share program that we created. So if we could go to the first slide. Okay, so our agency partnered with a local borough and with Hatfield Elementary School to start a free bike share program in our area. And we sat with school officials, Dr. Deanna Waters at Hatfield Elementary School, Michael DeFennis, who's the borough manager in Hatfield, and we tried to unearth some community needs. And one thing that kept rising to the surface was transportation or lack of it in our area. Another thing particularly important to Dr. Waters at Hatfield Elementary was the need for more physical fitness among her students and their families. So we thought that a free bike share program might be the best way to attack all of these different, needs that were coming to the surface. So we did find several benefits in partnering with this school and with the borough, and I listed some of them here. I'm sure there might be some more, but these were the main ones that really stuck out in my mind. The first one I have listed is reducing the workload. So you have more hands to do more things. So we were able to use borough staff to do some of the assignments. We were able to use school staff to do some of the assignments. So we were able to delegate, some of the grunt work, if you will, so that our staff here didn't have to take it all upon ourselves to do it. Another thing is that it improved the turnout. So we reached 3 different audiences primarily. As I said, we're primarily a transportation-focused agency, so we have a specific audience that we reach. The school was able to reach students and families, and then the borough was able to reach its constituents. So we were able to get more people out by sending messages to these 3 audiences instead of just sending it to our, specific transportation audience. Another benefit that we saw was it created better ideals. You know that saying that 2 heads are better than 1? Well, this definitely proved to be the case because creative juices were flowing, a lot of brainstorming was going on, and we definitely benefited from that. We were able to come up with a lot better ideals about how to have an effective bike share program that everyone could enjoy. Another benefit we saw was finding errors. In our community planning sessions, we would, talk about different times when we might have members from the community come out to let them know about the bike share program, how it would work. And we kept coming across dates where there were either in-service dates for students or, spring break or break periods for families. And we wouldn't have known that if we didn't partner with the school district, if we just assumed that these dates worked for everyone because it worked for us. So again, having that partner, having the right people at the table really helped us to see that, not all dates work for everyone. And that's something we probably wouldn't have seen if we were working in a silo, as they say now. Another benefit we saw was it adds credibility. We have a community bike ride coming up on April 26th where we're, again, promoting our bike share program, and one of our partners this time is the Montgomery County Department of Public Health. And so just having an agency like that adds cachet. The county's Department of Public Health says this event is worthy of your time. This event is an important one for you to really look at and for us to be involved in. So really, if you have, other agencies or organizations that you think would add that certain amount of credibility, definitely reach out to them. And I think more often than not, they would be more than happy to partner with you. One of the additional benefits we saw was saving money. So in this regard, where we had to, we had printing costs for signs, or we had food for the community nights, or, just the different little costs that pop up, we were able to, spread it around among agencies. So our agency, say, would pay for food for the community night. Someone else would pay to have those election signs printed. So it really helped, our budget as well as, any other budget from being too taxed at any one time. And then lastly, which is important, especially to us as a nonprofit agency, is that partnering pleases funders. So one of the buzzwords you'll see now in grant writing is sustainability. How are you going to keep the program going after our dollars go away? But another buzzword you hear is partnering, and they want to know that you have this full bank of community resources at your fingertips, that you are using all the assets that you have at your disposal locally in order to make the project the best that it can be. So I'm sure Alicia and Joanne from Penn State Hershey Pro Wellness Center would tell you that they really like to see when their grantees partner with other agencies. And next slide. So how did we get the kids motivated? We had several activities this past season that really got kids and families out and moving. the partnership TMA where I work, we had 3 community bike rides so far, and this was a great way to, kind of bring people out. Great weather for the most time. We did have one where it was a snowstorm, believe it or not, but for the most part, people came out. They really enjoy being around each other. They enjoy these types of community building activities. So we're definitely looking forward to the April 26th one, where it's called Pedaling on the Parkway. And we have a local highway that's actually a state-designated scenic byway, Route 202. And it's really, if you could picture a beautiful highway, I know it sounds like it doesn't go together, but yeah, it really is a beautiful roadway with hills and the split rail fencing, and no billboards are allowed on it. So we're using that as the next venue for our upcoming bike ride. Hatfield Elementary School hosts an annual family fitness night, and we were able to participate with them this year. And what they did was, it was a Friday night in January, and at first I was surprised when the physical fitness teacher, Mr. Berry, told us the timing of it. I was thinking, who would come out on a Friday night in January? But there were easily 200 people there between students and families, and they had 6 different workshops set up. So one was a Zumba class, one was cross fitness training, one was mixed martial arts. We had one of the classes for our bicycle safety demonstration class. So it really was a well-attended night, and people would just move through the 6 different sessions over the 2 hours. So it really was a good time, and I'm glad that the school invited us to participate in that, and we definitely will be going again next year. The next bullet I have is the borough has these walkabouts, we call them. So these are nights when small groups of community members come out to walk around Hatfield Borough. Hatfield Borough has a nice trail system, and it leads through this compact little downtown and through some of the neighborhoods. And so we themed different nights around it. So one was a haunted walkabout. So it had a spooky kind of connotation to it, where we highlighted some of the local lore and legend in the borough. And then one was more on architectural interest, so the different housing stocks in town, the different looks for the building facades, for people who might be interested in that. So a good turnout always, and it is a way to get people out and walking and using the trails that you have in your community. The WiseNet Coalition actually is now out of service, but it had been here in our North Penn school area for about 10 years, and it was funded to provide evidence-based nutrition outcomes for students. So they would work with local school districts to help students see the importance of eating healthy, the importance of recess time, the importance of just staying physically fit and active. So at the beginning of the bike share program, they actually were still in existence, and they worked with us to go into our local schools and to get kids really psyched up and motivated for the bike share program that was coming. And then the last one I have is our Focus on Fun brochure, which is actually a colorful little brochure that we designed in-house, and it kind of tells you how many steps are needed to burn off some of the popular food choices that we make. So like a fried chicken breast or a glazed donut that you might have had for breakfast, and it just helps you keep at top of mind how many steps are needed, or the equivalent number of miles you have to walk just to burn off this one piece of food that you had. So we definitely can send those out. My contact information is coming up at the end of the slides if you like a copy of that brochure. And then our last 2 slides are just some pictures from the events that we've had, and I'll just go in clockwise pattern. Our first picture is a ribbon cutting that we had for the free bike share program in Hatfield Borough. Holding the scissors is Congressman Mike Fitzpatrick, so we were happy to partner with his office. Again, partnering, so important, partnering with his office. We had some borough officials there, some school officials, one of our board members, and our executive director there in the white T-shirt. That next picture is little Rama and her father. During the family fitness night at Hatfield Elementary School, we raffled off a bike helmet, and she was the winner of that, so they're posing there for a picture. Coming down, again, is my executive director wearing a bike helmet in one of the bicycle safety demonstration classes at Hatfield Elementary School Family Fitness Night. And, you know, it was a packed house there. People really wanted to find out how to make sure helmets fit properly, what plans were for the bike share for this coming season. So we were really happy with the turnout that night. And then moving over to the bottom left is what had been intended as a fundraiser for our bike share program, Pet Pictures with Santa. Well, little Jaime there, he was not having it. He wanted his picture taken, so we kind of changed the focus of it to be Pictures with Santa. And, you know, so Santa was there in Hatfield Borough on one of the trails in the local park. And it was a good time. And I have one more picture from that on the next set of slides. Okay, the top left, pictures of our cherry red bikes parked outside of Borough Hall. And just to let you know, I know some want to know the mechanics of how a free bike share program works. And what happened was we were lucky enough to receive the capacity building mini grant from Penn State Hershey Pro Wellness Center. And we used that money to buy bikes and bike helmets to place around Hatfield Borough. So it really was great seed money for us to start this program. Residents show up with an ID to Borough Hall. They could sign up the bikes for up to 48 hours, and then we ask, even if they want to keep the bikes, that they just check back in every other day so that we know the bikes are, you know, in good hands and they're not being vandalized or anything like that. But we're not asking for any money at all. They can, you know, just with their ID and signing a waiver saying that they promise to either wear a bike helmet or that, you know, we aren't liable or our partners aren't liable for any problems that may happen if they don't wear bike helmets. Coming to the top right, that's my coworker, Annette Jacobs there, trying her hand at a virtual reality game. I think she's on the conference call now. Hi, Annette. But this was a fundraiser that we actually had on the walking trail at Hatfield Borough. There's actually an arcade, like a company that builds pinball and virtual reality games and all that jazz. So they allowed us to have an open house as a fundraiser, so people would come and pay $5 for the day and have, you know, free run of the place for 3 hours. And again, that was a partnering benefit. The borough, you know, spoke on our behalf, and the company said, sure, you know, why not? If the borough says they're good people, then let's just, you know, let them use the place for a day as a fundraiser. Coming down, again, that's Pet Pictures with Santa, a little muffin there. She looked scared, but she actually turned out to really get comfortable after a few snapshots were taken. So we were happy to have about 30 dogs there, and only 2 cats, which I thought was interesting, but maybe 25 to 28 dogs we had turn out that day. So a very good turnout for that, a very good fundraiser for us. And then the last picture I have is for a bicycle safety demonstration check. That is Hatfield Borough Public Information Officer Jamie Snyder, and she came with me. We had a walk to school day in October at Hatfield Elementary, and so she and I co-presented on the importance of, you know, making sure your tires are inflated properly, your bike chain isn't obstructed, your brakes are working, your bicycle helmet fits properly. So again, that was a good time, and the school has invited us out again in May for a walk to school day, so we're very excited about that. Again, another way to get kids out and walking in their communities. Again, thank you so much for allowing me to come on to the conference call today. My information is at the end, and I'm always, you know, open for phone calls or emails, so feel free to send away. And good luck with your programs.
Okay, thank you so much, Anthony. I'm going to advance the slide here. Just as you mentioned, that your contact information is also here, and that if they have specific questions about your program and the great work that you guys are doing there in Montgomery County, that they can use this information to contact you. In the interest of time, I'm going to move forward here and let you know that if there are other questions for Anthony or for the other information that you've seen in today's presentation, feel free to put a note in the chat box, or to use the email address that I provided in the beginning of the presentation, or this one that you'll see right here on this slide, the prowellness@phs.psu.edu. All of these resources will funnel back to me and my team here, and we can get those questions answered for you. I do have a few questions that have come in that I just would like to briefly answer. And there was a question about the sources that were used to show academic success and physical activity and the connection there. And I know a lot of times when you're working with administrators and you're making, if you're a teacher or a parent or even other administrators, and you're trying to make the case for incorporating higher amounts of physical activity into your school days, that evidence-based resources and the science behind it is often a good resource to use. So I will share those resources on our website, the same website that you'll find the recording of today's webinar on, and that link will be included in a follow-up email after this presentation. And another question about any past or upcoming webinars. So the website, our Penn State Hershey .org/pro-wellness website also has a page that has our previous webinars on, webinars about Walk to School Day, the full webinar of comprehensive school physical activity programs, and other things that you may be interested in. You can find that on our website. And also we have a plug here for an upcoming webinar in May that's going to address details of the new school food guidelines and recommendations for fundraising related to food and other things like that. So I don't have a date yet, but keep your eyes peeled for the date of that webinar in early May, and details about that will also be located on our website. And with that, I'd like to thank everybody for attending today. It's great when we can get people together, administrators and teachers and all walks of life and together to hear about important things like comprehensive school physical activity programs. I would like to let you know that the email that's coming out after today's call, after today's webinar, will include a link to a survey. It's a very brief 6-question survey, so if you could take the time to complete that today. And then as a reminder, you'll find the link to our recorded webinar and certificate of completion if you requested one. So thanks everybody, and enjoy the rest of your Tuesday.